Hello, thank you for joining us today for the third in our series, Instapage Product Tour, Coffee and Conversions. Some quick housekeeping items today as we get ready to begin in the next few minutes. Please, if you have any questions during the webinar, submit them in the Q&A window and we will answer them towards the end. We will also be sending out a recording and a copy of today's deck via email early next week. And then finally, at the end of today's session, we'll share a survey link via email to gather your feedback and learn how we can improve future webinars, ensuring that they provide you with valuable and actionable insights. Now that we've gone over those, I hope everyone has grabbed their cup of coffee and is ready to get into today's agenda. So today we'll be discussing new and existing features inside of the platform, with then followed by a live in-product demonstration and then a live Q&A. Your speakers today are Griffin, our Product Marketing Manager, myself, Michelle Barnes, Senior Manager, Strategic Service, and then Evan, Senior Product Manager. Let's go ahead and dive into our feature spotlight. Kicking things off, let's talk about the collaboration tool. Griffin, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Michelle, and hey, everyone. So yeah, with collaboration, essentially it lets you collaborate directly on your landing pages, which is a great way to streamline your review process. Essentially, you can think of it like a Google Doc, where you just share your landing page and start gathering feedback and approvals right from there. So no need to send screenshots or navigate comments in multiple places. Just share your landing page and get aligned faster.
Thanks, Griffin. And the collaboration, it's great for centralizing feedback kind of in that one place to avoid confusion that can arise from scattered communication or get lost in email threads. Everything is right there on the page. And it's also nice to kind of set up those notifications to keep stakeholders really updated on different milestones on the page and help avoiding those feedback delays to help sustain that momentum in the landing page creation. So with that, let's go ahead and move to our next feature, which are the carousels.
Yeah, on to carousels. This is a great interactive element that you can add to your landing pages. Really, they allow you to build multiple slides that visitors can then scroll through, helping you boost engagement and share more content without taking up extra space. Internally, they're also great to give you multiple options. So if you wanted to show more products, or if your team had varying messaging preferences, you can use a carousel, and then this accommodates for all those needs. So no need to settle, just use carousels.
Thanks for that. And then from a CRO perspective, really, I recommend placing the most important information on the first slide. And that's typically where 40% of interactions happen. And then in terms of the UX, I would recommend using visible arrows or thumbnails to help users explore the content in the carousel without any sort of confusion. Finally, visitors really tend to engage well with carousels. However, also from a CRO perspective, I wouldn't recommend putting any information in carousel that's imperative for visitors to know. So for example, if you have certain steps for like how it works, I would keep those visible to eliminate that extra click and friction, but really great for things like testimonials, where visitors can slide through each of those to view the content that they're looking for. So then the next feature that we want to discuss today are heat maps. Griffin, take it away.
Yeah, heat maps, they're an invaluable CRO tool, and they're offered on our Convert plan. They let you visualize your visitors' behaviors and see insights around their mouse movements, clicks, and scroll depth. You can make necessary changes based off those insights, and then you could even test them in our platform as well. So without Instapage, this whole process would require a lot of time, tools, teams, and even trade-offs. And we know marketers can't afford this, and that's why we've built all these tools directly in our platform.
Thanks, Griffin. It's definitely one of the features that I really like to use when I'm providing analyses. What I'm looking for when I'm looking at heat maps is elements where visitors are clicking where maybe it doesn't have any action. So for example, maybe something looks like a button. We see a visitor clicking on that. Either we want to add an action to that, or we want to kind of remove the styling that would encourage them to click. Through the scroll maps, we can look and see where visitors are falling off on the page. And maybe that's an opportunity to add a call to action or to trigger a pop-up at those points to help motivate the visitor towards taking that next step. And then one note that I'd like to add is if you see a lot of visitors scrolling to the very bottom of your landing page, that's often an indicator that they're not finding the information that they're looking for. So that could be a cue of maybe you need to add some more details on the page in order to motivate them towards that next step. All right, so moving on to our next feature, we have our image library. Griffin, tell us more about that.
Yeah, I like to put this feature this way. You already uploaded the image, so why have to do it again? With our image library, you don't have to. Just upload your images to your dedicated library and easily reuse them across your landing pages. Another great benefit is you can also organize your images in folders, making them even easier to find and add to your landing pages.
Definitely. And I think those folders are an important way to really organize your content, whether you want to separate them by different logos, icons, lifestyle imagery. It's really important to organize that content to make it easier to find, but then also updating the names of your images to make them easy to search for. So for example, if you're looking for a specific lifestyle image at a certain size, you could say woman and dog 600 by 600. So whether you're looking for specific elements of an image or the size of an image, it's easy to search for those in the platform. And then also always like to point out the accessibility angle of that. Don't forget to add alt tags to your images to make sure that screen readers are able to decipher that image and determine what it is trying to communicate to visitors that are not able to visually see it. All right, and then the final feature that we were going to go over today is our pop-up builder and library. So Griffin, tell us about that.
Yeah, these latest additions were, I believe, the last of many that we launched last year. And really, they give you a dedicated builder to create pop-ups. And then, as I just mentioned with the image library, you also now have a library for your pop-ups. So similarly, you can then create your pop-up. You know, it's a proven pop-up that you've seen used on across pages. Then you can just reuse it on other pages and get the same results. So a lot of great benefits from having a dedicated builder and a library directly in the platform.
Definitely. And some items that you can test on there. So using a gamified pop-up to kind of add an element of fun or encouragement. Also using pop-ups with different promotional cues to help motivate the visitor again towards that next step. And then using exit intent pop-ups. So those have shown to recover up to 15% of abandoning visitors. And really, if the visitor is on their way out, it's really a non-intrusive way to help draw the visitor back in and try to recover that conversion. So now that we've kind of gone over these features, let's see them live in product demonstration. And Evan, I'll hand it off to you.
Sounds great. Let me get this shared and we can get going. Okay, so you should be able to see the screen now. The first thing we want to look at is collaboration. And in order to collaborate, you do need team members. There are two ways to add team members. You can either go into your workspace settings.
Evan, we're seeing Slack.
Oh, how is that possible? 1 second here. Let me try this again. Why did that grab the wrong window? I do not know. So here we go.
Perfect.
Can you see the right one now?
I believe so.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. So let me get to my correct workspace again. Now, adding team members, there are two spaces to do it. One, you can go to workspace settings here, and you can go into workspace settings to your team members, or from here, you can go straight to manage team members, and it will bring you to the same thing. From here, you can use add team member, add by email, and then you have 3 different roles. A viewer can really only see things and make comments. An editor can edit, but they cannot publish pages. And then a manager can publish and do everything except for modify your billing. So once you add somebody, they will have an invite that will kind of prompt, it'll say that you're pending. And once they accept it, they will now have access. When they have access, they'll be able to see your pages And you can see here where I can see who's made changes on these pages. You can actually change the order, like if you just want to see yours, ones that other people have done, that kind of thing, to see what your team is doing. Then I'll show you when you go to a preview on a page, you will see this option, comment mode. And when you turn that on, you're now in commenting. You can see some comments. You can see this arrow following me to add a comment, and you can see any that have been like kind of finished. So once you resolve it, it'll show that check. Next, you can look over here where you can see these comments on this sidebar, and you can see where they're at, whether they're resolved or added, and that kind of lets you follow along and understand what's going on. Now, when you do invite people to be a team member, they will have access to your workspace, and they will be put in a trial, but that trial, once it ends, they will still have access to that workspace because they are part of your team, and it takes up one of the seats in your account. And that should be everything for collaboration. Next, let's look at the carousel. So within the builder, you have a tool here that says carousel. You click it and it will insert a blank carousel. But I have one here that we can look at. Within the carousel, once you've selected into it, if you double click in it, you'll see everything else go gray. You can drop elements directly on your carousel and kind of build what you want. But you're really building it on these slides. So you'll have a slide and you can add elements on. You can then switch to another slide, add new elements, and continue to do that until you've got all your elements in. You can also add new slides. You can come here and delete them. You can duplicate them. You can also drag them to reorder them, and that way you can see the slides switch as you go. With that, there are also some settings that you can deal with. Now, you have the ability to make it autoplay, so this thing will continue from the first slide on its own. You can set the timing and kind of figure out what works best for you. You can put arrows on this. They can be on the inside or the outside. You can give them a color. Same thing with the dots that would be like on the bottom. Let me show you. On this one, you can see the dots on the bottom. You can see the arrows. And you can also set a different background color if you want. And you can set like a transition time. So that's the time it takes for it to slide. And then lastly, you can set whether it loops or it does not loop. So you can see these are continuing on, but though they're moving, I could come in normally and click the arrow, and that will actually make it stop working. It will stop moving, and then they can move through manually. But if you don't have it set up to automatically move, you would use those arrows to move manually the whole time. Next, let's look at the heat maps. In the same area here, you'll see not only do I have the comments, but I have the heat map. And to show you heat map, I really need to show you something that has some information on it. So we're going to look at this prototype that kind of leads you through it. On the sidebar here, once you've checked that toggled that heat map on the top, you can open it up and you can see a few different things. One is versions. So once you save a new version of the page, it will update and show you that. You can have variations. So if you had an experiment and you created multiple variations, this would show you which variation you're looking at. Now, we can't really compare them easily to each other because heat maps are a visual thing. It's really about like what's on the page and exactly where it's at. And so if you have another version where you've moved something, then comparing them is kind of not going to match up, but you can compare the outcomes. So if we look at these three possible heat maps you can have, first is scroll depth. And on scroll depth, this is the one where it shows you how many people have made it that far down the page. And you can see this falling off pretty quickly as you go down. Now, I have a CTA on the bottom, but as you see, only 18% of people would ever see that. So hopefully that isn't something that's important. because you want them to have these up at the top where 100% are at. Maybe you have a secondary that's kind of in the middle where people are getting that need more information, while you have some that don't. And you can see if that second one would get you a few more conversions. But this allows you to see the depth of that page and how people are interacting with it. The next one is the clicks. So on a click map, it will show you areas that people have actually clicked. And you see, as I hover around, it gives me a count of how many people clicked in that area. And one of the things you'll look at is like, there is a button below that, but people are clicking all over outside of it, just kind of getting in the area. So you can think about, is that a clear indicator of what they should be clicking? Just like this logo up here, 208 people tried to click the logo. Do I have that linked? Those are the things you want to think about. And you do have people trying to click this image. So again, that's one of those things where you may want to consider either adding an action or de-emphasizing or re-emphasizing other areas. Like this one definitely is getting the most kind of views. So we are doing pretty well on this page as far as clicks. And then lastly is mouse movement. And this one can be useful for a few things. One, it'll show you where people are kind of slowly moving around. They're trying something down here. Maybe they're trying to click through on those. Maybe they're just like using that as the area where they're at. But you can also think of this as the eye movement. So you can see people kind of moving here. It usually happens when they're reading. They're looking at elements that they're pointing out while they're thinking about it. And you can kind of see where people's interest is on that page and use that to help you think of how to put these on. But you can look at all these, you can check the dates, change the dates, and kind of filter down to information that'll help you the most. And that should be everything for heat maps. Next, let's look at the image library. We're going to go back to our builder. And images, this is one of the first things you've probably done, which is insert an image. So when you come in here, you'll have your library. And you can see I actually have folders that are broken up. I have client logos, I have icons, other brand elements, just images that I've put in. And then when you click into them, you can get detail about that. And from here, you can actually give this image a specific name. I can say this is like header or hero computer and give it a real name. But then the alt text, I'm putting actual descriptions, as Michelle was talking about, just making them very clear. So this is computer and keyboard illustration. What is there? You want to put what the picture is, not what your intention is for someone to see it. It puts everybody on an even playing field, and it gives them kind of the feeling of what you've built rather than what you're trying to convey. And that will put all your images together. Next, you could do insert and drop that image onto a page. And that way you have it on the page and you can use it. Once it's on the page, you can then resize and crop the image there. But this is not the only place you can mess with your images. Let's go back to our dashboard. And on dashboard, you know, we have this assets area. We started it last year and it's been growing. And we have images there as well. And so you can open up the same thing and you see all the same options. You can go in here, get descriptions, get all that. The one thing that's missing is insert, because we are not on a page and we have no place to put it. But you can upload your images and manage them from assets. You can have other people do that even before you start building your landing pages. And that's useful for your brand images, or if you have a big campaign coming up and have all your assets ready, load them in. So that should be everything for the image library. Lastly, let's look at the pop-up builder. So we're going to go back to our builder here. I'm going to click out where I'm not on any of the elements, and then you can see your page settings. And one of them is this page pop-up. For page pop-up, you can disable, you can enable, and there are a lot of different settings for triggering them that we've gone over in previous webinars. But for this, we want to show this library. And this thing really does not like me. It wants me to log in every time just to remind y'all how it's done. So here we go. So Normally in here, you could have pop-ups that you've saved. I don't know why it's not showing my pop-up. Yes, I am going to leave this. I am going to get out and I'm going to come back in the builder because I believe it has lost something that you should be able to see. Let's go back in here. We're going to go back to edit. And it is not loading. Okay, well, let's try this again. Okay, we've made it. So once you come in here, you can go to the library and then you see your pop-up. It probably hit it because of the login and then it lost where I was at. This way you can take these, you can preview this pop-up and see what you have in there so that you can decide that's the one I want to use. You can look at both desktop and mobile versions of it. You can insert it and it will now put it in this pop-up for me. So doing that, I can use the same pop-up multiple times on different pages. And as you see here, global pop-ups are coming. So you will be able to not only use the same pop-up, but edit them in one place and have them update everywhere. But this is not the only place you can work with pop-ups. You can also come to your sidebar here, and in assets, we have pop-ups where you can see the pop-up again. Now, the thing that's different here is that you can also edit your pop-ups. And this brings you into the pop-up builder, which is a standalone builder just for pop-ups. So you can build them separate from anything else, just like your images, work with creating assets outside of your pages. And then once you have them ready, go in and add them to your pages and use them. And you could have new things that you're ready to build. You can modify them, duplicate them, and just work out of that library as you need. And that's all of our demonstration.
Thanks, Evan. And thank you for pointing that out around the global pop-ups, because that was one question that came in of, do all of us have access to pop-ups being global blocks? I saw it on the screen, but not in my dashboard. So to clarify, that is a feature that is in the works. So excited to hopefully have that come out pretty soon here. But yes,
Yeah.
on the way. But I have some other questions as well. And if you want to go ahead and start putting additional ones in there. One question that came through is, can I share images across workspaces?
Currently, you cannot. The reason is that when we created workspaces, they were essentially sub accounts. They're separate accounts, they're managed separately. We are looking at how to manage this better. And one of our thoughts is less about workspaces because they are very siloed. Instead, moving you to something that's less siloed so that you can have different work streams that are kind of built around teams or campaigns or whatever you want to split them on so that you could share those images. So this is something we are definitely looking at and trying to figure what will be the most useful for people and get that out in the future.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Another question that came in, can I schedule a pop-up? Griffin, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can take it. So yeah, you can achieve this in two ways. Either by adding a pop-up to a page that's already published, and then you schedule it to update, or you add the pop-up to a new page and then schedule the publishing.
Thank you. Let's see. If I use autoplay on a carousel, what is the optimal amount of time I should set it for? Evan, do you want me to answer this one or you want to answer it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so I learned this from my great friend Evan over here, which is a great recommendation, but essentially how long it takes to read the text on the carousel backwards. So let's say, for example, you had this sign up today for our SAS filled newsletter. If you were to read that backwards, newsletter filled SAS are for today up sign, then that's the amount of time you want to set that auto scroll for on those slides. to make sure that the visitor has enough time to read through all the content before it switches. Let's see, here's a good one. How can I add people in bulk?
So let's go back to the dashboard. And I know this question has kind of two parts, right? So one is adding essentially multiple people at a time. So you can put, I believe, there is a way. I may have to look this up, but you should be able to put multiple in here. I could be wrong.
When I think another way is using the new API feature, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's the other side of this is a lot of times the thing people want to do is add the same person to multiple workspaces or add multiple people to multiple workspaces. And we do have an API that allows you to do this using some sort of other setup that you may have that kind of pushes changes, or you could write a script to do it. I know that's a little more technical, but we're also looking at ways to bring this into the app as we look at, like I was saying, ways to kind of open up multiple spaces and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I will definitely look it up and make sure that there's some sort of information out there that tells you at least how to add multiple people to the same workspace. And when we change anything else in the future, we'll definitely make sure people know that.
Thanks, Evan. All right, and I think that is it for our questions today. So I'm going to take back the screen. Let's see. I just want to remind everybody on the call that if you do want access to any of these new features that we have coming out, if you want to beta those and provide feedback, you can register for our early access program just by visiting this link, bit.ly/IP-early-access. Or when this deck is sent out, you can go ahead and just click that as well. But I also want to remind everybody that coming up, our next webinar will be on May 29th, where we will be reviewing the new collections that are coming out. I'm pretty excited for this one. Also, new global forms. We'll also be discussing some tracking elements of GA4 custom events and URL pass-through, external conversions, and then some design elements for custom fonts, default styles, and then format, super, sub, and strike. And then just keep an eye out for more sneak peeks in future webinars. But I want to thank everyone for joining today and have a wonderful rest of your day.